So this is another demo where we're going to talk more about structure and look at some of the new tags and that. Uh, so what we have here is the standard, index.html page. We have our root node, HTML. We have the head. We know that the title text will end up being the text in the tab. In that, no fancy icons in this one. We have the body that'll be in the main window just below the tab. There is a header in that. There is a nav in that. We have another section with an image in it, and we have an aside, and we have a footer. Okay, so we have a graphic from lecture that shows this all nicely arranged, different colors, round corners, and that. And so what I'm going to do is actually blow that all out of the water, and I'll try to explain why towards the end of the demo. So the best thing to do is just launch this thing in a browser, and I will slide it over in that. And so when we look at this and that, we can see the header. Well, the header is usually at the top, but then we have this navigation element, and it's right after the header. Okay, and then we have this section, and it's right after the navigation component. And then we have the aside in that, and it's right after the section. And then we have the footer, and it's right after the aside. And so the graphic from lecture showed everything all nicely arranged, round corners, nice colors, and that. And so the take-home message here is just to remember that HTML does structure. Instead of this being like what some people will call like one big chunk of spaghetti code, where your navigation and the sides and that are all over the place, we've added structure to the document. So we've broken that one big chunk into a bunch of little chunks, or more granular is a term some people might use, and then that will give the ability to move things around. But the HTML doesn't move things around. It's the cascading style sheet that styles and positions. Okay, and so I just wanted to drive home the message, right? I could easily make this the footer, and you would find that the footer would come right away. So the default layout, I think, is called it's called flow and block. And what that means is it flows one after the other in the order it is specified in the HTML, and each block is like the next row down and that. And so then you might be confused. Well, why isn't it right like the nice graphic in the lab? Because the idea is that before we can even start moving things around, we need the ability to isolate isolate navigation away from the header, isolate the header away from the section, isolate the section away from the aside. And so these tags give you that foundation, that fundamental concept of taking one big page but breaking it into chunks, and then someone else, the cascading style sheet, can start moving those around. Without the style sheet, they're just going to flow one after the other, and you're not going to have any control to say, hey, I want that over on the left, I want that over on the right, I want that always at the top, I want this always at the bottom. That's not done by HTML. That's done by cascading style sheet, but cascading style sheet can't do that unless you've already ahead of time separated out that data, right? Put the header information in the header, put the footer information in the footer, put the aside stuff in the aside, put the navigation stuff in the nav, and then you can start moving things around. Especially something like a navigation thing. If it's a mobile first web friendly development, do you even want to show that? Maybe you want that, like on a mobile app, off screen on the left hand side, hidden, and when someone interacts with the page, it slides out like a slide out drawer on Android in that. So at first when the page loads, you don't even see the navigation menu till someone swipes from the left edge in, or hits the menu button, and it pops up. So before you can get to all that fancy interaction, before you can get that really nice looking layout, you first need to be able to fundamentally separate the data in the document into these different areas. And then you can decide through styling and JavaScript interactivity what happens. But the HTML has to first lay the foundation, give you the ability to separate out what is the header data, what is the footer data, what is the aside data, what is the section data, and then the other parts of web development can take over and rearrange the content for you. That's all for now.